Hello folks and welcome back to MTG Burgeoning. It's Sunday, so that can mean only one thing. Sunday is fun day, and in today's video, we are going to talk about a few revisions that we're going to make to Morophon the Boundless and his rat colony. Hello fans of MTG Burgeoning, what is up? It is Sunday Fun Day time here, and this is going to be most likely our last installment of Morophon with rats, because folks, the deck works very, very well, and we're only making a few revisions to help the process of abusing and utilizing our rat colony a little more streamlined, and outside of that, that's really going to be it for this deck. There are not going to be any sweeping changes or modifications to the theme or focus of this deck. This is all about the rat colony and abusing what they do. So before we move into the portion of this video where we're going to talk about the few revisions, I do want to share some of the absolute standouts of this deck so far through all of the gameplay. And the first little synergistic combination I want to show is the Altar of Dementia and Leyline of the Void. I had these two cards out in play, and without any, let me reframe that, protecting them from my opponent's potential interaction through the, the counter magic that we have included in this deck to help protect our rat engine, I can say that I was able to win a game through sacrificing rat colonies to the Altar of Dementia, then having those cards get exiled from the Leyline of the Void, and not having to worry about any of the potential shuffle effects of any of the Eldrazi Titans or a Blightsteel Colossus or anything like that. And it was just great. I was able to sacrifice consistently with Altar of Dementia and then bring them back from the graveyard with cards that we're going to see in one moment. And so I want to make sure I let everyone know that the Leyline of the Void and the Altar of Dementia combo, it was aces, baby. It was aces. Another subset of cards that were absolutely just perfect additions for this deck. Not that I really need to talk too much about them, but the Jet Medallion was huge in reducing the cost of the rat colony to a black. Additionally, Bantu's Monument was awesome to, again, reduce the casting cost of the rats to just one black mana, in addition to having a global life drain effect that whenever we cast one of our rats, each opponent loses a life and we gain a life. And then lastly, the Herald's Horn, which also reduces the rats for one colorless mana. And it's nice to have the ability to, when we draw or when we reveal a card from the top of our library, and it is a rat colony, we put it right into our hands or one of the other rats that we have in this deck. So these cards have been awesome. The Jet Medallion, the mana reduction, they've just been great. They've been absolutely great. As like I really need to explain that much about how awesome those types of cards are. All right, so aside from the wonderful synergy of the Leyline of the Void and the Altar of Dementia and the mana cost reducers that we've already talked about, we got a few cards here that I just want to point out that were absolute studs during gameplay. No card worked harder in this deck than the Elemental Bond. Already having just one rat in play, any rat after that comes into play that's a rat colony, we're drawing a card. We're drawing a card. We're drawing a card. And it's just constant. And it's just coming into play. So it's not like we have to cast it. We can get it from the graveyard. We can get it from the library if we have spells that were able to allow us to do that. Elemental Bond, not Elemental Blonde. I wonder if that would be an uncard sometime in the future. But Elemental Bond, that has been doing some hard work. Amazing card. Another awesome card in this deck was the Secret Salvage. Just having a rat in the graveyard, casting Secret Salvage, targeting that rat colony, and then bringing as many rats as I needed from the library into my hand, particularly if I already have Morophon the Boundless in play with any one of the CMC reducing artifacts we talked about earlier. Every single one of those rats are coming into play for free. So Secret Salvage has been doing an awesome job too, just working wonders in this deck. As for game-ending spells that if not interacted, the game is over with these types of creatures. The Akroma's Memorial comes as advertised, folks. The CMC is tough with 7. However, we've been able to get pretty lucky with some of the mana shenanigans that we can pull off in this deck, respective of the Phyrexian Arena. I'm sorry, the Phyrexian Altar, and then bringing the rats back with spells like Immortal Servitude and Patriarch's Bidding. So getting Akroma's Memorial in play with a bunch of rats, it's game ending. I've ended many games just by casting Akroma's Memorial, and if my opponents do not have interaction, or if we have the ability to prevent their spells from destroying Akroma's Memorial, that's all she wrote, folks. That game is over. Another card that worked out a lot better than I thought it would is Tetsuko Umizawa, Fugitive. Creatures we control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. And, you know, with the idea of making sure that we kept the toughness of our rats at 1, this allowed Tetsuko to come down and make all of our rats unblockable. Now, I will definitely also attest through gameplay that has also been at times, not always, that has at times been a bit of a deterrent it's been a bit of a detraction, particularly with any big trampling creatures, because if the majority of all of our creatures' toughness is just 1, we're taking a lot of trample damage. It doesn't happen every single game, but when it does, if we go up against Green Stompy, we need to make sure we hold on to all of our removal spells. But Tetsuko has been working out very well. Again, I mentioned it earlier, Immortal Servitude has been awesome when we got a bunch of rat colonies in the graveyard. CMC of 5 with X is 2, and we're the only ones to return creatures to our graveyard, and we have the propensity of having a ton of creatures in the graveyard. Immortal Servitude has been working hard. Another card that has come as advertised is the Blood Bond March. This is a way in which we can really, really accumulate a lot of mana. If we have this in play, and we have the Phyrexian Altar in play, and some rats in our hand, we can sacrifice all of the rats for colored mana. We can cast a rat, bring all of those rats back, and rinse and repeat until we have enough mana to do whatever we want, as long as we have enough rats in our hand to bring them back into play. And the last card that really comes as advertised, Thrumming Stone. Next to Akroma's Memorial, Thrumming Stone has been the end-all when we have it set up. If we've got the rats in our hands, I have routinely rippled all the way through the deck. There has not been one time, and I've probably had the Thrumming Stone rat combination in play probably in about 4 different games. And in each of those games, I rippled all the way down to the bottom of the library, and the game was pretty much over after that. So those have been the absolute standout cards of this deck so far, and I wanted to make sure I took a moment to give them their fair due, because they've been working hard. They have been putting opponents away. All right, so with that being said, we have 6 revisions, just a half dozen cards that's going to allow us to take our Rat Colony engine and streamline it and make it that much more powerful. And the first card coming out is going to be Beast Whisperer. 2 and 2 green, we cast a creature spell, we draw a card. So he's going to come out because the replacement card is going to be so much better. And that's going to be a copy of Garruk's Uprising. When Garruk's Uprising enters the battlefield, if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, we draw a card. And creatures we control gain trample, which could end up being a win condition built in on this card. However, whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under our control, we can draw a card. Garruk's Uprising triggers each time we have a creature come into play with power 4 or more. That means as long as we have 2 rats in play, any other rat that comes into play is going to trigger Garruk's Uprising. We do not have to cast the rats. That's where the Beast Whisperer was failing for me in this deck, is there's so many ways to get these rats from our graveyard into play, and they're not triggering the Beast Whisperer. That's only a cast trigger. So by including Garruk's Uprising, making it an enchantment, which is a little bit more difficult to get rid of than a creature, plus with the potential win condition of massive trampling rats, and the cantrips of anytime a creature comes into play with power 4 or more, we're drawing a card, as opposed to the static cast trigger of Beast Whisperer. Additionally, 2 and a green versus 2 and 2 green, Garruk's Uprising is going to do a better job of getting cards in our hand, which was the primary reason we included Beast Whisperer. All right, next card coming out is going to be the Emergent Ultimatum. All right, the CMC of 7 on this card, stretched across the 3 Sultai colors, is a bit much for what we're trying to do with this deck. We're trying to do a very, very quick, streamlined, get the rats in play, do what they do, and let's get them out of there. There are very few targets that are effective for casting the Emergent Ultimatum, and honestly, every time it was in my hand, I didn't cast it once. So I wanted to take this card out and replace it with a different tutor effect that would be much more effective to the game-ending engine that we're trying to create. And with that being said, I think 1 copy of Fabricate will do the job very, very well. 2 in a blue, search our library for an artifact card, reveal it, and then put it into our hand. I'll slide Fabricate over a little bit to the left and then bring it down a little bit to expose some of the amazing artifacts that we talked about already. The Altar of Dementia, Akroma's Memorial, Jet Medallion, Herald's Horn, Bantu's Monument, and Thrumming Stone are all great artifact targets for Fabricate, which, by the way, we could not get with Emergent Ultimatum. So Emergent Ultimatum and its 7 CMC casting cost is out. Fabricate with the 3 CMC targeting an artifact in our library is going in. Next card coming out, and you're going to start to see a theme of many of these higher costing CMC cards that were included in the deck coming out of the deck in order to make room for more of a streamlined vision into what we're going to do. And the next card coming out is going to be a copy of Doubling Chant. For 5 and a green, for each creature we control, we would search our library for a creature card with the same name as that creature and put those cards onto the battlefield. Although this was useful, and the one time I did cast it, there were other games where it was just clunky in my hand and just kind of in the way. So I wanted to try to remove a card that didn't seem like it was as valuable every time I had it in my hand and replace it with a card that, well, would be. And I think including a little bit more of mana ramp will be a great idea in this deck. So a copy of Farseek is going in, which lets us search our library for a Plains, Island, Swamp, or Mountain card, which for the purposes of this deck, we'll be looking for an Island or Swamp card, and we put it into play tapped. The ramp of this deck, because we only have 35 lands, seemed like it could use a little bit of a shot of adrenaline. So bringing out a clunky card like Doubling Chant in order to include some additional ramp seemed like a no-brainer move. Next card coming out, and again taking a look at the potential of the CMC, we've got the copy of Morophon is coming out. 3 and 2 black, it gives all rats fear, and then we can tap and sacrifice a rat to put X/1/1 black rat creature tokens into play, where X is the number of rats we control. There was really never a time where this did anything more than just give the rats fear. It was just never any of the synergies where I had to get this in play, wait a turn to use it in order to tap and sacrifice it, because so much of what this deck wants to do is it wants to rev up the first turn it can and do whatever it needs to do to win the game through that way. And having the Morophon in play and having it in my hand, it's taking a little bit more time to actually make it better. So similar to Doubling Chant, Morophon just felt clunky. It felt clunky in my hand, it felt clunky during the interaction, and it definitely felt clunky as I was trying to rev up the game-ending Rat Colony engine. So very similar to Doubling Chant, that's going to come out, the Morophon, to make way for a little bit of mana ramp, and we're going to include a copy of 3 visits. For 1 and a black, we're going to search our library for a forest card and put that card onto the battlefield. So 3 visits, of course, is the opposite of Farseek. Two CMC mana ramp spells going in to bring out a 6 CMC and a 5 CMC, 2 spells that, well, they just felt clunky, like I said. All right, next up, 2 more revisions to go, and we're going to bring out the Pack Rat is going to come out. This is not so much a CMC decision as it's just more of a focus on trying to get as much early mana available as possible. Because with the Farseek, the 3 visits, and the last 2 cards we're going to add to this deck, the theme is we need early, quick mana to get a little more ahead of our opponents, to get our Rat engine online maybe a turn or 2 earlier than what's been happening in my gameplay. Not that I'm saying the Pack Rat isn't a great card, it is, but it's not what we're looking to do in this deck. So we're going to take out the Pack Rat. The Pack Rat's going to come out, and in its place we are going to include a Talisman of Dominance. Again, with a 2 CMC, we can tap it for a colorless mana, or we can tap it for a blue or a black, and we take a point of damage. So the Talisman of Dominance is going in, and the Pack Rat is going out. And this is it. This is revision number 6, and the last one of this video, and the Piper of the Swarm is coming out. So the Piper of the Swarm is not a rat. It's a 1 and a black, and it does give rats we control menace. That was helpful in a couple of the games that I was playing, and I had Piper of the Swarm in play. Unfortunately, though, it's 2 abilities to create a black rat and then to gain control of target creature that never really was anything that I could do, because I was always kind of on the defensive with the Piper of the Swarm, and it would come into play, and then it would just kind of sit there, because like I said, as I'm trying to get the rats moving, the Piper of the Swarm just felt like it was kind of in the way. It had that doubling chant, Marrow-Gnar, Emergent Ultimatum feel of just clunkiness. It coming into play and giving our rats menace is great if we have the ability to attack with them. It's not as it's not as formidable as Tetsuku Umizawa and the unblockability of our, 1 toughness rats, and it's nowhere near the game-ending ability of an Akroma's Memorial, and it shouldn't be for just 1 and a black. But still, the Piper of the Swarm just didn't have a very good synergistic feel to it, and I think that by eliminating more of the fluff, more of the clunkiness, to include another mana ramp source in Talisman of Resilience, which taps for a colorless or taps for a black or green and deals 1 point of damage to us. I think overall these changes are going to make the deck stronger. It's definitely going to make it faster. It's going to make the deck more focused and driven towards that theme of gathering the pieces we need for our rat colony engine, getting them into play, protecting them, and then winning the game. And folks, that's it. This is MTG Burgeoning. You are here on Sunday PHONday, and we just revised and talked about some gameplay interaction with Morophon the Boundless and the Rat Colony. MTG Burgeoning, folks, your channel for all things magic.